3 p.m. already, so we should start. Let's go to the camera. Hi, welcome back to the Untitled WebDev stream. I'm Lucas again. In the last episode, that was like the first one, I gave you like an introduction to like the reasoning behind this stream and why I'm doing this. And also I talk about like the basic tools that you will need in order to follow up some of the examples that I will be giving you today. For example, the code editor or text editor. I recommended VS Code, but you can use whatever you want or you prefer. And the other tool is one that we basically all have in our setups in Windows or Mac or Linux if you are a Linux user. And that's the browser. So I recommended Google Chrome, but you can use either Google Chrome, Firefox, even Microsoft Edge if you want. Don't use Internet Explorer, please. It's like, that sucks and it's super old. Go to Microsoft Edge instead. But yeah, the idea today is to focus mainly on one of the 3 building blocks of the web. These 3 blocks are HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. And today I will be focusing in the most basic one, the one that without, like, if we don't have that, basically the web doesn't work, and that's HTML. I will be talking a little bit about the syntax in general, meaning how you write HTML, and I will be working on some examples with that. Also, as usual, I'm doing a stream and not just a series of videos in YouTube, because if you have any kind of questions, go ahead and just write in the chat. For example, I don't know, like, I don't understand this, or can you do this, or whatever, like any doubt you have, just go ahead and like write it in the chat. As soon as I gaze into the chat and see a question there, I will try to tackle it in order to like have as many questions answers as possible. But don't feel bad if you are watching this on YouTube later, because the idea is also to receive questions in the comment section below in YouTube and just like take note of those questions and answer them in the next stream if possible. So yeah, let's just switch to the desktop. So that could be this one. So I already have the browser open. As I said before, I'm using Google Chrome for this, but you can use Firefox. My recommendation to use exactly the same browser is mainly to have the same experience. So for example, if I say like a keyboard shortcut, or I show you something and you want it to look exactly the same, it will be easier to do that if you have the same browser. Also worth mentioning, I'm showing everything on a Linux distribution that is pretty popular called Ubuntu, but you can do the same things on Windows and on Mac, because everything that I'm showing to you is free and you can download it for every operating system. So you are not like, it's not that you need to download Linux in order to do anything that I will be showing you. It's like, just I want to show stuff that is free and open for everyone. So like I'm not putting like a paywall in front of you every time you need to reproduce some example. So yeah, this is browser, and in here I have also opened the code editor. This is Visual Studio Code, the code editor that I usually recommend. This is also free and you can download and use it in pretty much every operating system out there. So in here I will just click, I don't know if it's big enough in the screen, but I will click in here, it says like new file, so I will just click in there and it opens like a blank screen for now. And this is already like a text editor. I can already write in here. I already showed this in the past stream, but yeah, it's like hello, and I am ready writing in here. And as I mentioned before, this is a plain text editor, meaning that I can't do something like making this bold, for example, or making italic or make it bigger. The only way for me to make it bigger is just like make everything bigger, just by pressing Ctrl plus that makes it bigger for everyone in order to show the examples better. If, for example, you have like a small screen or something like that, I can do that if any of you in the stream aren't able to like see the screen correctly, but let's keep it like a little bit smaller, like there, maybe. So this is just like a text editor, as I mentioned before, and as I shown in the first episode, if you save this with a specific file extension, meaning like, for example, when you download a photo, that photo is like a number or a name .gpg, like JPEG, or maybe a GIF, and it's .gif. So when you save this particular file, as I mentioned before, this is like a HTML example, so we should save it as file save, and let's go to the desktop. In here, let's create a folder called HTML, maybe? Yeah, let's do that. And in here, I can save this file as hello, or whatever name you want, .html, right? So now Visual Studio Code recognizes that I'm working with that HTML5, and that's signified by a change in the icon in here. It might not be the same if you are using also Visual Studio Code, because you can customize the look and feel of this editor. So for example, I have like an icon pack installed. The icon pack that I have installed is called Material Icon Theme, but yeah, it's just like a theme. If we switch that to the default, maybe icon file icon theme, we set it to the default, then the icon is this one. But yeah, basically, like, now that we save this as an HTML file, the code editor already recognizes this as an HTML file. So we will have some syntax highlight. I mentioned this in the first episode, but the syntax highlight is basically, for example, if we go to my good example provider, Twitter, and we go to context menu, view page source, we can see in here that there are some words in different colors. That's what is called syntax highlight. It's basically, as I mentioned in the first episode, is we have different colors. For example, if we were talking about just plain English, it's like we had a color for a verb or a subject in a line of text, right? So in here we have different colors for different things in order to make it easy for us as developers to differentiate one thing from the other. If you imagine this as being just plain text, and I can show you that example by just copying here and creating a new one in here, it's like it's really hard to differentiate one thing of the other if it doesn't have any colors. But as soon as we have syntax highlight, like in here, we have different colors for different things, so it's easier for us to differentiate stuff. So yeah, for now, let's keep it clean. Okay, now let's resume something similar to what we had in the first episode. This was just like a plain text, so it's like hello stream, I'm Luke. Save this, and as I mentioned before, you can just see what's being produced by the file by just dragging it to the browser. So let's drag it to the browser in here, and I can make zoom exactly the same as in the text editor. I can just press Ctrl and the plus sign, and that will make this bigger so you can see it, but the actual size is just super small. It's not like a title or anything like that, it's just text, right? So HTML, that's the topic for today, is one of the 3 building blocks of the web, right? As I mentioned. So we have HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, and we will see them in that particular order. Why? HTML is the base building block for any website. So if you don't have any HTML at all, hi Metronox, welcome. If you don't have any HTML at all, then the website will not work at all. So you need to have HTML. You can omit CSS, you can omit JavaScript, but HTML needs to be there in order to make a website work. So because it's the base, we need to see it first, right? CSS is just another language that we will see later, but basically that allows us to make things prettier. So instead of just seeing like white background with black text, we can personalize this in order to make it look fancy, right? In order to make it look beautiful. Maybe not, maybe you use like Comic Sans in here and it looks horrible, but I'm talking like you can customize the looks of the website with this other language called CSS. And lately we will be seeing the one that will take the most amounts of streams for sure, the one that is called JavaScript. And that's the one that allows us to give our website a behavior. So that's like, it allows us, for example, when you click on something that opens a pop-up, for example, or when you hover over something, it does something. It's like, it gives like life to the website. So if we make like the equivalent of this in like I don't know why I always come up with the example of the human body, but if this was the human body, HTML will be like the bones, CSS will be like the skin, the thing that you can look at, and JavaScript will be like the nervous system, like the brains of the website. So basically it's kind of like that. So but yeah, the basic one is HTML, so we need to see that first, and hopefully like it's kind of easy to understand. So HTML is composed by what is called basically just elements, and those elements are constructed by tags. So we will see both of them separated. A tag is just a word that is surrounded by this like smaller than and bigger than symbols. So this one, this symbol, and this symbol. So this is what is called an HTML tag. So it's HTML tag, right? These HTML tags are used to create what are called elements on an HTML website. I will go as low as possible so you can interrupt me at any point. I'm just letting you know. So you can put whatever word you want in here, but the thing is like the browser itself only understands a few words. There are a few that are already there, and you can use those in order to do things. This is super confusing, but I will go like example besides everything I say. So I initially say that any word can be in here, but only some are recognized by the browser. One of them is one that is called strong like strong, but that is that means to the browser that we want to say that something will have a strong importance, okay? And that has a visual representation as well. So what does this mean? Let's write, for example, hello, like previously, but I want to make like an emphasis, like I'm making like a strong importance to the word stream. So I put it in here, okay? If I save this and go back to the browser and just refresh in here, we can see that we have the hello world normal as it was before, but now we have the stream word in bold, right? So that's because this is a strong word for us. We are telling the browser that this has like a strong importance. Now, let's say I want to keep on making this line, but I want to keep the rest without being strong. I want just to make stream strong, right? So let's say, for example, I say, I am, look, as I said before, right? If I go back in here and refresh, wait, it's like everything is bold now, and I just want stream to be important, right? The rest I want it to be like just regular text as this like hello word. So in order to achieve that, we need to use the same tag again, but this time closing. How we do that? So I said the same again. So I want to finish before this comma, right? So I write the same again. The code editor is doing stuff for me, but okay, let's save it. I use it again, right? So that fixes it. Nope, this is still what is called an opening tag. In order to close the thing, so in order to say like finishing here, we need to use this bar, and that signifies that strong starts in here and finishes in here, right? So once we do that, if we go back and refresh, the only word that is strong now is stream, because this is invisible now. But if we do like context menu inspect, as I showed you in the first episode, you can see that we have the word hello, then strong stream, so this is the only thing that is bold, and then I am Luke, right? So initially when I start talking about HTML, I mentioned that we have HTML tags and HTML elements, right? So the tags are only like this opening thing, a word and a closing thing. And this is also a tag, it's just like a closing tag and an open tag, right? Opening tag. The element is basically the mixture between the tags and the content of that tag. So this thing is a strong element, right? So this part is the strong tag, strong opening tag, and the strong closing tag, and the entire thing with the content is a strong element, right? So when I'm clicking in here, I basically am selecting the strong element. That's like just like the way we like the naming convention basically. But yeah, you can call it whatever you want. But yeah, it's like the strong element, and is made by two strong tags, the opening and the closing, and a text content. We can, for example, if I want to, instead of saying stream, I want to say folk, I can first check it in here in the browser. I can do like double click and just say like folks, hello folks, I'm Luke. It looks kind of good, but remember I can change it in here, but it's not changing in the file. If I open it in a new window, it's still saying stream. This is just useful for us to test stuff. So for example, I see this and yeah, folks sounds kind of better. So I can go back to the editor and change it in here, and that changes effectively for everyone. So folks, and I save, and I go back in here and refresh, and now it's folks for everyone. So the basic of HTML is basically just that, is HTML tags with text on them. How can you find out more about these kind of words? I will say this like pretty much every stream. I might have not said it in the first one, but I will repeat it in every stream. Every time you have a doubt, not only you can ask people like me that are super open to like giving you a response, but generally you just can go into Google and look for stuff. So for example, let's say I want to make look italic, so I just write like italic HTML tag, okay? And now I get like how to make the text italic, and yeah, maybe this is the response I want, and maybe in here there is some kind of example and I know already the response, but let's say like after reading you find that this is M, the tag you need for that, right? So just copy, and this is taking forever. Okay, let's go to the editor, and I want to make look italic, I said. So I just paste whatever I found, and let's move look in there. Boop. And when I refresh, look is now italic, right? This M is not like super intuitive. It's like why M? Because programmers in general tend to try to abbreviate everything. That's not a good practice. Like I will say this also like pretty often, but it's not a good practice to make things short. But the thing is, like, this was decided already, and it's like a standard, meaning that every browser interprets an EM like an italic. But M is basically abbreviating the word emphasis. So you want to make emphasis on this word, so EM is just emphasis. So I'm making emphasis on look, so that's why it looks different. So now we have hello, strong element folks, I am an emphasis element look, right? And as you can see, we start seeing these tags all over. If we open, for example, again, my good example Twitter and see the code behind it, you can see already that we have some extra stuff in here, but we have this opening thing, a word, and we have some things inside of them. For example, this style one will be pretty interesting later. But yeah, you can, it's basically like opening tag, stuff, closing tag, and this is a style element, for example. So now, these are not the only kind of like HTML tags or elements that you have. So for example, you have strong and emphasis, for example, to make the words bold or make them italic, right? But we have some of them that are they have some styles, but they're mainly used by the browser in order to understand what your site is about. What I mean with this is, for example, not only for search engines like Google that can understand what your site is about. So for example, if somebody is looking about a website that is, I don't know, about folks and look, and it noticed that I have a strong importance in the word folks and look, then this site will pop up first because the search engine understands what my site is about. But it's not only useful for that. What is more important is that if we use these tags, we make accessibility tools better. Accessibility tools are basically the ones used by blind people or people with difficult to see. So they use what are called screen readers, that are basically things that read what is on the screen. And thanks to these kind of things, they're not only like a visual representation, but they actually can be understood by machines. So when somebody can actually read this, the machine will read it for them. So maybe they will read it like, hello, folks, pero I mean, it will be read like with more importance, or maybe look will be read differently, right? I just read the chat, and yeah, it's like, yeah, it's not intuitive at all. Like EM is not a good like, why not like emphasis? It's not like, maybe I wrote it wrong, but yeah, like why not this? It's like, but yeah, they usually abbreviate everything with M or something like that. But well, so one other element that can be useful in here is the one that is called just P. This is again an a Suki abbreviation, but whatever, that means paragraph. So we are telling the browser that this is a paragraph that has the text hello in it, with a word that is strong and is false, and then look with emphasis. This doesn't have any kind of difference visually, right? I just refreshed, and now this is inside a paragraph, but it still looks the same. And that's basically because we are telling the browser that this is a paragraph. Before that, the browser didn't knew what this was. It was just like random text with some important thing on them. So yeah. One other element that I want to show you is the one that is called H1 for now. And in here, let's say Untitled WebDev stream, right? So this H1 thing that I just wrote, this is like the text editor is helping again, so I can hover over it, but the H1 element represents a section heading. This is just like the heading of a paragraph, for example. So how does that look visually? Now it looks super big, but let's make it a little bit small. It's just like a title. So we are telling H1 is like a title, but why the 1 in here? Because we can, for example, use H2 and in here say like stream about web development, right? And save this and refresh. So now we have another subtitle, Sora, that is a little bit smaller. and we can go from h1, that is one with the most importance, that's why it is like a 1 in importance, to the h6, that is the smallest one, and I think it's like super small. This should be super small. So if we refresh here, it's even smaller than regular text, right? So, but this also is like a heading. So again, how you can find more tags like this one? We have the good old Google. So every time you have like, how can I make like I don't know, like another header between these ones, you can just Google it, or you just can ask in here or something like that. But yeah, so for now, this just looks like a boring like Word piece of text. Like, I can do this on Word, so why should I like write code to achieve the same thing, right? So we can start making more interesting things, like for example using images and stuff like that in here. So let's put an image in here. So let's look for one. Images.google.com. What should I look for? Fall Guys. This is a pretty popular game right now. So yeah, let's copy image address, right? So every time you want to download an image for Google Images, you generally just like do like context menu and you do like save image as. But in here we need just the address, and I will tell you why just in a moment. But let's just copy image address, right? So if we go to a new tab and just paste what we have copied, it's just the image, right? So if we go to the code behind our website and go to the src property, and I will talk about like attributes just later. I said property, but it's an attribute. I will talk about attributes just in a minute. But we have the image tag. Yeah, this should be like image, but it's written like emg, right? And in here we have src equals what? Okay, so if we save this as it is right now and we go in here and refresh, it doesn't show anything, right? It's just like it make like some kind of jump in here, but it's not showing anything. So to make it show something, we need to use what is called an attribute. So I previously mentioned that HTML tags are just text between the these two symbols, the lower than and bigger than symbols, right? So every HTML tag, or pretty much, yeah, every tag, right? Yeah, all HTML tags have what are called attributes. Attributes are just like the word like kind of suggests, it's like a particularity in that tag, right? So for example, I don't know, if you see like a guy that is super strong, an attribute of that guy is being strong, right? So in the case of an image in here, we need to use an attribute. Attributes in HTML tags or elements are just more words in here, inside of this lower than and bigger than thing, separated by spaces. So I need to make a space in here and say src. src is again another abbreviation. It sucks, but well. So, or source is basically the source, the source of this image. So we want to say like what's the value of this source, meaning what's the source of this image. So in order to give it a value, we need to do the equal sign, and between quotes, this quote symbol, I just paste the URL of the image that I had, this one. So I just paste that, right? Now, you can notice another thing in here that is kind of particular. Let's separate it a little in order to have like some visual difference between the two. So H1 has an open H1 and a closing H1, right? And P opens in here and is closing in here, and strong is opening in here, and so on and so forth. But image doesn't have any like /emg. Why is that? That's because some HTML tags and some, just some, like vast majority open and close, but some of them are what are called self-closing tags. Self-closing tags. So that basically means that this tag doesn't need anything to close it because it doesn't have anything inside of it, right? We can make something like hello in here, but the thing is, like, this hello will not show anywhere because it's just an image. Where will you put that text, right? So if we write it like this is fine because this doesn't need to be closed. It's already self-closed, okay? You can write it in order to make it visually better, like in order to understand that it's self-closing. You can write it like this if you please, if you want, but it's not needed. HTML understand already that EMG closes by itself. But if you want to, like, when you are reading the code, understand that this is closing by itself, you can put the closing bar inside the same element at the end. That means that basically that this is closing by itself, okay? So if we go back to our site now and refresh, we should see, yeah, oh, it's super big, but yeah, we have like Untitled WebDev stream. This is the title in here, the image, and then hello folks, I'm Luke, just below it, right? So now we have a problem in here. Like I just mentioned, that this is super big and I want it to be like smaller, maybe because it's like taking a lot of space and I don't like it. So how we make it smaller? We have more attributes to the same component, the same element, sorry. So this EMG element has this SRC attribute, right? So if I hover over it, we have an explanation coming from the Visual Studio Code editor. Not all editors have this. So if you are, for example, editing directly in, I don't know, like I think Sublime Text and stuff like that, there are some editors out there that don't have this. But yeah, VS Code, when you hover over SRC, we see that the image URL, this attribute is mandatory, blah, 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 but this is basically like explaining what this is doing, right? So if we want to make the image smaller, we can use a width attribute. Again, this is an attribute of the image. And in here we can set a value of, for example, I don't know, what's a good value? 400 maybe? Let's say 400. This value is expressed in pixels, basically. So we want 400 pixels width. So if we switch again and reload, the image is suddenly smaller, right? Because now it has a width of 400. Again, in here we can keep on using the developer tools that come with the browser. So if we inspect in here, the same way I showed you before, that you can do like a double click in here and edit the text to say, for example, this should be called full guys thing, I don't know. The same way you can edit a title, for example, or a text, you can edit also attributes. So let's say, for example, I'm not happy with 400, maybe bigger. I can double click in the 400 value, and I can even use the up and down arrows. So if I press the up arrow, I can make the value bigger, or I just can go ahead and just delete it and put a value myself that I think about, for example, I don't know, like 600. And as soon as I press enter in order to save this, the page refreshes in order to show us what that value looks like. It's still kind of big, so let's say like 500 maybe, yeah, maybe. And now that I'm happy with it, I can go ahead and go back to the editor and just save the value for 500 in here, and like, I don't know, yeah, full guys or whatever. And if I refresh, now the changes I did are expressed in the page itself. Now, there is a pattern that I show you kind of like, but I went just above it, but I can show you like in more detail. But basically, tags are not needed to be just like separated one from the other. What I mean for this is that you don't need to always put one thing and then the other and then the other. Hi Vera. But you can actually like put one inside of the other. This kind of sounds bad, but it's not that bad actually. But for example, we have a paragraph in here, and as you can see, I put a strong element inside of the paragraph element. This is not so clear in here, but if you go to the inspect in here, we can see the body in here, the paragraph that I wrote, and inside of the paragraph, like with an indentation, you can see that strong is inside this paragraph, right? So I can make it smaller or bigger. But strong and EM is the same, is inside of that, and we can see like also the pieces of text separated one from the other. Why I'm highlighting this? Because there is another element that I want to show you that is called the anchor. Like the when you are like on a ship on the sea and you throw an anchor in order to like keep that like that boat in the place or something like that. Well, that's the same name, but the meaning in web is completely different. So that element, instead of being written like anchor, like how it should, is just the name, okay? And this one, yeah, this one needs to be closed, right? For now, let's just write it in there, and it doesn't do anything, right? Because it's empty and it's not doing anything in particular. So this element is what allows us to create basically a link. So it's a link between one page and the other, or inside the same page, but let's see the interesting one that is from one page to another, right? So let's put some text in here. For example, let's say, yeah, my site, whatever. So is one next to the other? Yeah. This element I showed in the first episode, and you can watch it again on YouTube. But yeah, this element I will use now is another that is similar to image, and it's called break, BR. And this creates a new line, because now like my site is just next to the image and it looks awful, and I want it to be in the next line. So my site, BR, break, image. So if I save this and refresh in here, now my site, there is a break in here that is invisible, and then the image, right? So now that we have it separately, this is still just a piece of text, right? It's not like if I click on it, it's not taking me anywhere, and it kind of sucks. So I want this to point or go to my site. So in order to go there, again, we have some of these attributes that we should be using. The attribute used by or the anchor element is called href. It's awful. I will like it to be like src as the image or something like that, but yeah, this is href. Don't ask me why. It's like they decided on that name and it's awful, but whatever. So the value of this href is basically the place I want to take the user when the user clicks on this anchor. So for now, if I keep it blank and I refresh, it kind of like already is like already a link, but where does it take me? If I click it, it takes me again to the same site, because I didn't specify any place to take me to, right? So if I wanted to take me to my site, I want to https So now if I refresh and I click on this, it takes me to my website, right? I need to press back in order to go back to this thing that I'm writing. That's this weird thing with Fall Guys text and hello folks, well, whatever. But yeah, so if I click in here, it takes me to my site. If I go back, it takes me back. So this is an anchor with the value my site that takes me to this href. I don't know why they use that attribute, gosh, to this website. Okay, so one thing, for example, one extra thing that you could do in here is do what is called target. This is kind of hacky, but whatever. So this target attribute is what is called a remanent of an older version of HTML. Basically, this was super used previously, but now it's not used that much. The only use it has today is that you can give it this value, blank, I think it is, maybe I'm wrong, blank, yeah, good old VS Code giving you this. So this blank loads the URL into a new browsing context. What does that mean? That if I go now to the website that I'm writing and refresh this, when I click on this, instead of replacing the current page, when I click on this, it opens in a new tab. So now if I click back, it doesn't take me back to my website because my website is still open on an older tab. So this is useful if you want to open things on a new tab. But yeah, it's just a detail that I wanted to show you. So I inspect your site. Yeah, go ahead and do it. My website is open source, so you can just go ahead and inspect it if you want. So far I show you this H1, for example, for titles. This one is used for links, and you can use it whatever you want. For example, yeah, this is my site, and I want to have a link to, like, I don't know, like let's say, yeah, to, yeah, Nectas Twitch, for example. This is a friend of mine that is does like Twitch streaming of gaming. You should see his stream as well. And in here we can paste this URL as well and save it. So now we have, if we refresh, we have my site in here, and if you click in Nectas Twitch, it takes you to the Twitch URL, for example. But you can use it whatever you want. You can have all the links you want. Okay, so BR for breaking, EMG for images. Okay, that's fine. Let's show you one more thing. So far so good. We can, yeah, see all the code that I wrote, but you might, I mean, this is a question that you can have, but if not, then I will put in your head, where is all these body head HTML things are coming, right? Because you wrote H1, A, BR, and all that, so this, from here to here, everything is the things that I wrote. But this body thing is coming from nowhere, and this head thing is coming from nowhere, and what's that, right? So when the browser loads my hello HTML file, it noticed that I don't have a correct HTML file. A correct HTML file actually has these things on it. So because it detects that this is kind of wrong, it has some mistakes, the browser fixes that for me. This is kind of different from other programming languages, like for example C++ or C, that if you do a mistake, that might break everything. In web in general, when you do a mistake, the browser tries to fix it for you, and that's kind of okay, but at the same time it kind of sucks because sometimes it fixes something that it shouldn't. Like it assumes that you wanted to do something and fixes it for you, and you actually didn't want to do that. So the browser is currently just fixing it for me. So it's like it detected that I didn't wrote this HTML tag and this head tag and this body tag, and it's doing that for me. But in order to have a correct HTML file, we should have that, okay? So let's start with the first one, HTML, the one that is showing in here, right? This is basically just a wrapper of the entire element. As I mentioned before, we have HTML tags and HTML elements. So in order to instruct the browser that this entire thing is an HTML file, basically we wrap everything in an HTML tag, right? So let's use a tab in here in order to have it indent in order to show what's inside what, right? So now we have all these elements inside the HTML tag, right? So in here the HTML begins, in here the HTML ends. It's just that. Now we also have one that is actually wrapping all elements, that is called body. We should, like, again, cut this, paste it, and we are pretty much done with this. So this body element is the body of our document. So basically everything that is inside of these body tags will be shown to the user. Yeah, I will add that later, Krihalis, sorry. So yeah, so we have this body element, right? So everything that is inside of here will be shown to the user. If we refresh this now, we can see pretty much the same thing. So Fall Guys, my site, the image and whatnot, because it is in here, right? And the other one that is in here, we'll have a use in just a moment, is called head. Head is not made for stuff to be shown to the user. So anything that you put in here will be just used by, for example, search engines like Google, or if you use it at all, I don't think you, but for example, Bing, or any kind of like search engine will use whatever we put in this head tag or head element, because this is basically like the data of the element. For example, the author that wrote the HTML file, or for example, the title that I will be showing you later, and stuff like that. So, for example, if we look here, if we I didn't wrote my own username. Okay. So if we look for my username on Google, one of the results is my own website, right? And as you can see in here, we see like in here it says my name, Lucas Cirusi, is a web developer, club DJ, and casual gamer from Argentina. This website has his main social. Okay, but if we go to my website in per se, that text is nowhere to be found, right? It's like I see these links and whatnot, but that text is nowhere. That text is actually, if we view the page source, this is super crypted, but whatever. The text I just found in Google is in here, and is not clear in here, but I will show you later, is inside the head, right? So going back, in order to make it less confusing, the head component is basically used by browsers and by like search engines in order to have some extra data about the current website without actually showing it to the user, okay? So in here we can, for example, use one of many tags that is called title, and if we write something in here like Untitled WebDev stream, UWS, I can't talk today. So if we save this, previously in here in the title of our website we have this hello HTML, but because we set this in here, now if I refresh, I see UWS in the top instead of seeing that hello HTML thing, okay? So we can put anything you want in here, like Untitled WebDev stream, and save it. And if we refresh, now if we hover in here, we have the title and whatnot, okay? As you can see, I set this title tag inside the head, and it's not actually like showing in here, like in the website the user sees. That was taken only by the browser in order to understand what we want to show in the top, in here, just in the tab title, okay? And this will also be used by search engines like Google in order to show what you see when you look Shiru again. What you see in here. So this is actually set in the title tag inside the head of our HTML file, okay? So this is the title of your website, basically. Now, one thing is kind of missing, is not mandatory, you don't need to have it per se, but it's good to have it, and is the doc type HTML. So this was mentioned by Krihalis in the chat, but this is like an special tag, and then that's why it starts with like an exclamation mark. and you can kind of like, if you try, you can figure it out, but it says like doc type, so the type of this document file is HTML, right? And this is mainly used to tell the browser that we are using the most recent version of HTML. We are not using something old, we are using the most recent one. So the previous one, I can't even recall it, but I think it's like HTML something, but yeah, I can't recall it right now. But yeah, the previous one, the old one, I didn't use it for like years now, but it was like super long. If we, I can Google in front of you, whatever. It's like HTML doc type HTML4, I think it is. Yeah, so previously, instead of just doing like doc type HTML, you needed to do something like this, and it was awful. But with this, you said like, we are in the version 4 of HTML. Now it's super easy, just like doc type HTML, and with this we are telling like, yeah, we are using the most recent version of HTML. We don't need to specify which one is it. So you can omit it, you can have it. Now, one cool thing that you can have in here, and like in VS Code, that I didn't show you before because I didn't want to go like I wanted to go one step at a time instead of like going like 20 steps at a time. But VS Code comes with a thing called Zen coding, that is like basically a tool that helps you write HTML faster. So one thing that it comes with, and I use it a lot, is that if you just created an HTML file, let's say like I just created hello HTML and it's completely empty, right? I can just go ahead and do like exclamation mark and press the tab key. As soon as I do this, you can see that it already wrote for me the base of an HTML file. It has some extra stuff that I will talk to you later, but it already wrote like the doc type for me, an HTML for me, a head for me, the body for me. So I needed to just write the body in here and save it, and it's pretty much like it has all the things it already had, but it worked for me, okay? So in here, for example, in the document, I can again pull like, I don't know, like Untitled WebDev stream. Now, it has some extra stuff in here, right? Why is that? This one is again something that everything that is inside the head. Let's do a tab in here in order to make it clearer and separate it with some new lines in order to make it more clear again. So everything that is inside the head of HTML is stuff that is mainly designed to be read by the browser or search engines, as I mentioned before. One of the many tags that you can put in here is the one that is called meta. And this will have the explanation for us, but it's basically like just extra data that is used by the browser. If we omit this one, for example, we can just cut it out and we go in here, there is no difference at all, right? Except, let's see if the browser actually supports it now, because in previous years it wasn't able to. Okay, now, in the old days, I'm talking about like 10 years ago, when you wrote, for example, this symbol that is really like used a lot in Spanish, the end with a tilde, I think it is called in English, but the ñ in Spanish, it wasn't rendered correctly by browsers in general. I think Firefox, for example, nowadays still doesn't render this as it should. It renders like a lot of noise, like yeah, something like that every time you try to use the N with tilde. So in order to make the browser support every language out there, for example, if you put like a Japanese symbol or an emoji or whatever, you need to have this tag in here. This tag is basically saying that the character set, this means like the characters you support when you are writing, will be with UTF-8 support. UTF-8 is basically pretty much every language out there. So if you write in Chinese, in Japanese, in Spanish or whatever, this will be supported without the need of any kind of like hack or anything like that. So this is just for that, just to support every language out there. Pretty much any website you go on today, like Twitter or Facebook or whatever, they had this. So I'm guessing if I go in here, I view page source and let's find it. It was like just the first line, I think, third line. So in here you can see that they have the same thing, charset UTF-8. This is basically because they want to support every language out there. So if you will write a website that will be only on English, maybe you don't need this. But basically, it's like just a good idea to have it in there, because if you don't have it, you might find some cases where the characters are not rendered correctly. So it's just like one of many things that you need to do. And as I showed you before, in VS Code, if you do exclamation mark tab, it already comes with that auto-completion, so you don't need to write it yourself every time. It is done by VS Code by default down there, right? Yeah. Basically, this is added by VS Code by itself, so you don't need to like write it every time. So this one, the one that follows, this meta name, viewport, and content, whatever, and this gibberish. This is added also by Zencoding, this plugin that comes with VS Code. And this is to support basically the layout when you are rendering this website on a cell phone, for example. So this is super gibberish. I will not like make you read it or whatever, but it's like we are setting the viewport, so that's like this thing over here, the white part of the browser, to have a width of the device width. So the maximum width this will have will be the width of the current device. So if we are on a desktop like this one, it will be 1920, but maybe on a cell phone will be a lower screen width. So this will adapt to it. And this initial scale is to set the initial zoom. Basically, when you pinch on the screen, like when you do like this gesture with this is basically like changing this value to the scale to like maybe 2, 3, or 4, depending on how much you zoom in. So this is the initial scale it will have. But basically this line is like every time you do exclamation mark tab, it will be added for you, and it's taking care of the responsiveness of your site. It's kind of like a gibberish word, but that means that it makes your browser work better on mobile devices like cell phones or tablets or whatever. So yeah. And finally, yeah, we have the title that I showed you before, that it only has like some text in here, and yeah, it's just rendering stuff. So this one just sets the value for this text in here. So what else can I show you today with HTML? Maybe just a basis of CSS. Your website has it. Open it from your cell phone. my website has it as well. Here in chat they are asking if my website works on a cell phone. So if this thing with all the animation and whatnot works on a cell phone, and the answer is yes. I tested also on a smartwatch, so even if you open it on like a smartwatch, it will look okay because I made the layout circular, so even on a smartwatch it looks okay. And you can test this, and maybe I can show you that as well. If you open the developer tools that I showed you previously, in here I show you this just barely on the first episode, but if you click on this square with an arrow on it, you can select any element and it will be highlighted on the code, right? This is just when you have like a super gigantic website and you can find something, so you just first click in here and where is this image? So I click on it and it shows it in the code in here, okay? But also, just besides that, we have this toggle device toolbar. This is basically to test our website on different sizes. So we can, for example, pick responsive and just resize it as whatever we want, okay? Or we can, for example, go in here and say like Moto G, and will emulate like a Moto G phone. Or we can say, for example, an iPad, and maybe I'm not wanting it in this layout. I wanted to rotate it, so like clicking here and it rotates. Okay, so this is just to test, for example, if this website works with an iPad, or let's say, for example, I don't know, an iPhone X. I will never buy one of these, but let's say I have one, and rotate it, and yeah, it kind of looks awful, but yeah, I can do the same thing with my website. So if I open again this, in an iPhone X it looks like this, in a Moto G it looks like this, but it's always in the center and it's always like rotating and whatnot. But yeah, so yeah, it works in a phone. So this is other thing that I wanted to show you. Yeah, so this one is to search for anything that we want to edit, and the one just beside it is just to change the responsive of the website in order to test it with different layouts. As you can see, for example, I don't know if it's visible enough in the stream, but my cursor is not longer an arrow, it's like a circle, because it will emulate like a fingertip. So for example, if you want to check if something is super small to be tapped by your finger, you can use this circle and you can test that as well. The other tabs in here, they are kind of like, they are for later, because for example, console and sources and stuff like that will be like, we will see that a lot when we work with JavaScript, but for now they are kind of like, they are not important at all. But yeah, so one extra thing I could show you today will be could be like the super basics of CSS, because like the previous episode, I just wanted to make an introduction to the stream and the tools you need, and I make like a super tiny introduction to HTML. So I could do the same today, and like we are talking about HTML, but we can talk a little bit about what we will be talking about in the next stream, that will be like all focus on CSS, I think. Or if, for example, I noticed that in the comments of the video on YouTube, there are like lots of comments asking for stuff of HTML. I might do like a half stream, which like the first part focus on HTML and the second one focus on CSS. So a super basic introduction to CSS. Let's do that. Yeah. So I mentioned before that we have this HTML element first, and inside of that we have the head, the head of the element that has all the data that will not be rendered directly to the user, and the body that has all the things that the user will see, right? So in here, in the head of the document, we need to add a new tag, and that tag is called style. It's like the flow, yeah, the style of the page, but whatever. So this style tag doesn't do anything again. So because it's in the header of our document, it's not doing anything. It's not changing how the website looks, right? But let's say, for example, I want to make the typography, the font of this website to be what is called a sans serif. This might be like a gibberish for you, but yeah, the current font being used is what's called a serif font. The serif fonts are the ones that had these like lines at the ends of the lines, like cutting them, this thing over here or this thing over here. This is a serif font, right? And I want this to be a non-serif font. So like, for example, let's see, Twitter has it. For example, the font in Twitter is not a serif one. It's what is called a sans serif, okay? So let's say I want to make this font different everywhere. I go to this style tag, and in here we have, I will do like a super teasing of this. It's like this other language called CSS, right? So inside HTML, I will put a little bit of the other language called CSS. In here, I will write super quickly for now, and I will explain later. So we have body and font family, is sans serif. Suddenly the font changes. How do I did that, right? So this is just a tease of the language I will be focusing on the next stream, but this is basically this piece of here, these 3 lines are 3 lines of CSS. This is another language different from HTML, right? But we can use it directly inside of an HTML file or have it elsewhere. I will show you that on the next stream. But for now, let's just show it inside of HTML, right? And in here, I just said the body element, so this one in here, body, okay? I want that to have a font family of sans serif. This is, as I talked before, the font that doesn't have the lines coding. If I change it back to serif, save and refresh, now you can see the font changes back again, right? So I can go back and forth. You can again inspect elements, and in here I mentioned before that you can change the text in here. That's great. Or I can change the value of a property by just clicking in here. That's also okay. But the thing is, like, how can I test changes on CSS? That's basically just below. So in here is the HTML. In here we have the CSS. And in here you can see the value I set sans serif. So I can also do like double click and just, for example, test serif, sans serif, serif, sans serif, okay? So I can test it out in here and see how it looks. I can also uncheck this in order to like remove it temporarily, or check it again in order to see how it looks. So yeah, it looks better with sans serif. So we can leave it like that, right? But let's say, for example, that I want this to be that one, yeah, let's say we want this paragraph to be sans serif, but we want this to be serif. So how can we do that? So it's following the same principle. If I say that body is everything and I now just want to set this P thing, I can change this body word with P, save it, and now the only ones that are sans serif are these ones, and these are serif again. But yeah, I will cover this deeply on the next stream. It's just like I wanted to show you that it's like pretty, like, where is the integration point? So where will you put the language that I will show you next together with this HTML language that we already have. So let's go back to HTML, plain old HTML. So as I mentioned, like initially on this stream, HTML is one of the 3 building blocks, right? So we have HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Those are like the 3 basic language to any website, any competent website. But the thing is, like, as you can notice, if I remove CSS completely and I don't have JavaScript in here either yet, the website is still, you can still use it. I mean, if you want just to have a website that just have text, images, and links, like a Word document, for example, this is good enough. You can just use HTML and just start working on your website. You could have, for example, if you have any kind of like business of your own, like a personal business or something like that. Let's say you, I don't know, like sell postcards or something like that will be weird, but we can put like selling postcards or whatever in here as a title. And that's the title of the tab, and then we can go in here and tell full guides. We sell like the best postcards, for example, the best postcards, and refresh. Yeah, and in here we can put, for example, I don't know, like facebook.com/ I don't know, like beautiful postcards or whatever. Let's say you have a page in Facebook that has this URL, and you can see, like, putting here like Facebook, and later, like, instead of like this weird image, we can have like a photo of your own. I will look for one in Google Images, but let's say you have one, so postcards, and yeah, let's say this one. why did it open? Because it's like a selling thing. I wanted an image. Okay. Copy image address. Don't do this, by the way. Like, try to use an image that you have if it's a business of your own. Don't use like an image of the internet or whatever. And refreshing here, and we have like an image in here, and like, yeah, this text could be changed to like contact me for details at like maybe in here like your email, my email at whatever.com. And I want to make this bold, so strong /strong, save it, and suddenly we have a kind of, it's not super decent, but it's a functional website or whatever. It's more decent than like several that I saw over the years. But so with just HTML, you can have like a competent enough website that could show just like links, images, and text, and you can be fine with that and just use that. But the thing is, like with CSS, you can improve that a lot in order to have like a better impact over your clients, and with JavaScript you can make it more engaging. So that's like the idea behind this stream, is to show you how to make like an actual product, like an actual application with JavaScript, not just like a thing to show stuff. But the thing is, without HTML, like the website doesn't work at all. It's like the first example I provided, like a body without bones will not work as well. So if you go, for example, like Twitter, Facebook, you put face on Google and Facebook is the first result. My gosh. Okay, if you go to Twitter, for example, and there is HTML behind it. If you go to Facebook, there is HTML behind it. They all had HTML behind it because the browser first tries to load HTML. If you, for example, try to create a website just with JavaScript, you are pretty much screwed because the browser will not understand it. If you try to load a CSS file directly, it will not load. Like, it will load like just plain text. So HTML is the bare bone basics. You need to do this in order to have all that. So yeah, I don't know if like there is like a bunch more I can show you about HTML. It's just that basic. It's just HTML tags with attributes that can take different values, and there are several words that come with the browser or that are reserved by standards. For example, the word HTML, head, meta, title. I mentioned this at the beginning, but I didn't show you. But I can. You can have like like any word in here, and that will work like a container, but it will not, like, it's not useful at all. So this is useless. This is useless, and it shows like a text or whatever, but the thing is, like, this is interpreted by the browser like it's just like plain text. It's nothing, because you can use any word you want in here, but if you use something that is not valid, the browser just skip it. It's like, okay, it's just text, whatever. But if you use a word that is actually reserved to be used, like for example M, as I showed at the beginning, M in here, then that does have significance, because we are saying that this text is now emphasized, and it has a visual representation because it now looks like an italic text. So yeah, so this is pretty much everything that you like the basic HTML you need. So HTML tags with HTML attributes. You have some of them that have like the open tag and the closing tag, and you have some of them like image that are self-closing, that close by themselves. You can use or omit the closing symbol in here, but I sometimes use it in order to signify that this closed by itself. And you have some of them that are used to render stuff, like for example the title, or this link, or this break of line, or this image. And you have some of them that are used mainly for the browser and search engines, like for example the title in the head. That's everything. Like if you have tags, a tag opening and closing with its content forms an element. So this is a head element, and that's pretty much everything that I can show you about HTML. Again, if you have any kind of like, let's switch to the other camera. If you have any kind of like doubts in general for HTML, like for example, I don't know, like why is that this different from that or whatever, we can see it on the next one just before we talk about CSS. If not, if I found out that, for example, there are not like that many doubts about HTML, we can just go ahead and just like do like a deep dive with CSS and just focus on that and how we can combine those styles that I will show you later with HTML itself. But yeah, that's like, I think that's pretty much it. So I will close it here, I guess. So thank you a lot for taking the time to watch this, and like I guess I will see you next time. Bye.